Hello, Gilad here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm coming to you from the gorgeous Park Hyatt Hotel here in the absolutely stunning city of Buenos Aires, Argentina. My first trip down here, and I've loved it so far. I'm here to join Virtuoso and many of our members and partners from across the region in our forum event that we hosted down here. And yesterday it was a real honor for me to share a brand new version of my AI talk focused on business owners and executives. And I wanted to share some of my new learnings and some of my new thinking with all of you. So thank you so much for joining. And as always, I'd love to hear what you're doing with AI and what you've been learning as well. Now, any of you who've watched any of my other talks know that I really like this slide, and I often start my talks here. And it's partially because it's cute and clever and funny, but the main reason is that it makes one critical point. Products and services, as we humans experience them, use artificial intelligence. They are not artificial intelligence in and of themselves. And the most important thing we all have to remember is that AI in the world of business, at least for now, is just a tool used by people to accomplish their goals. And as I tell audiences all over the world, any anxiety and fear, any hope and excitement you have around AI should be couched in the reality that AI is just a tool used by people to accomplish their goals. A tiny bit about myself. I was born in Israel, where my dad was an early artificial intelligence architect back in the 90s, and I moved to the United States when I was a teenager, when my dad joined an early AI startup in 1997, and I was very lucky to watch him build a startup in that space many years ago, and then I was very fortunate to become an entrepreneur myself in 2006, and of course started a company called UTrip in 2011 that was the world's first AI trip planning company, which I'm very proud of. And from there, I've been able to join many boards, many advisory boards, and to invest in some of the best AI startups in our space. And I serve on many boards. And of course, with my friend Kate, I created the podcast, The Travel Tech Insider, that you should all check out. Now, before we talk about AI specifically, I wanted to remind everyone in our audience here and all of you that there's a lot of innovation happening across the travel and hospitality industry right now, and that AI is just one very important, but one element of that. And last year at our Travel Technology Summit at Virtuoso Travel Week, I highlighted a few of the key things I'm paying attention to in the world of travel technology. And those include smart connected systems and, of course, the connected trip, which I've spoken a lot about. New monetization models. There is so much innovation in the business models and the delivery mechanisms that we are seeing across our industry, including the travelization of finance and the horizontalization of travel and lifestyle, and then, of course, the great commoditization of AI. Now, we all know that artificial intelligence has captivated the imagination of science fiction for decades, but over the past 3 years, it's really burst onto the scene for real and has seemingly taken over every element of our work and our lives. Now, as I shared, my AI journey goes way back, and it's something I've been paying attention to for a long time, and I'm very excited that we're finally in an era that I call the great rollout or the great adoption phase of the great commoditization of AI, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But of course, starting with the basics, when I try to talk to audience and I say, what even is artificial intelligence? And the short answer is pretty simple, and I'm sure all of you know the answer already. AI is just computer code. It's a new type of software that's really good with data and patterns and guessing. And as of the last 3 years, AI has, of course, become really good with creating content through the Gen AI era that we lived through. But at the end of the day, it's just a new type of computer software and a new type of tool that people can use to accomplish their goals. And of course, as I always like to remind people, AI is just a tool used by people to accomplish their goals. And that's how we should think about it, especially in the business context. Now, it seems to me that many people make poor predictions about the future of artificial intelligence because they don't really have much context for the past. And I've shared this a lot in a number of other talks, including some available on YouTube. So if you want to dive more into that, please go check out those videos. But the only point I want to make today is that to many people, especially in traditional businesses, it feels like artificial intelligence is new. It feels like it's something that just showed up out of nowhere. But the reality is we started talking about artificial intelligence, what we used to call cybernetics, in the 1940s. That means we're approaching nearly the 100-year anniversary of us beginning to study cybernetics, which became artificial intelligence at elite university campuses. So while many things are new, and of course the pace of change is incredible, we need to remember that this is not new. And to be able to predict the future, we need to study the past. Now, up to 3 years ago, when people asked me what are the latest and greatest examples with artificial intelligence, The answer was always this. It was IBM Deep Blue beating the grandmaster in chess. It was speech recognition. It was facial recognition. And then, of course, in the United States, when IBM Watson went on Jeopardy a number of years ago, that's when AI really came into the public consciousness and the public mind of the average American. And the dirty secret is that all of these things come out of one sub-branch of artificial intelligence called machine learning, which is still today the dominant part of the AI field of study. And the thing is, the thing that people forget is that machine learning still today requires not just a lot of human work and human input, but it has a lot of room for humans to input our own judgment and to really control the system in a way that is much harder with other types of AI. And the thing is, a machine learning system has three core elements. It has categorization, it has labeled data, and it has algorithms. And the reality is, still today, most of that is being done by people. Now, of course, we all know about AI written code, and AI soon will begin to create algorithms, and it's getting better and better at labeling data. But again, machine learning is a place where we can have a lot more control over the output than in some other types of AI, which is why, of course, it's still so useful, and so many use cases come from this branch of AI. But of course, nowadays, when people talk about cutting-edge artificial intelligence, they're talking about these things. They're talking about Gen AI, they're talking about GPT, Mistral, Perplexity, and all the other tools that are out there that, of course, are advancing at incredible rates. Now, in the words of one of my favorite tech reporters, AI is eating itself and the internet. Just think about the cannibalization we've seen all around us. Google is trying to kill the little blue link that made it one of the most powerful companies in the world by introducing chat capability, as you know, at the top of the response, eliminating the search and click and the pay-per-click model, which is where their billions come from. This is the extent to which they believe AI, and specifically Gen AI, is going to change the way we interact with technology and with the internet. We've seen the junkification of Amazon through reviews and imagery whose quality has plummeted, especially for third-party reviews. We've seen job posting for AI editor instead of writer, with the expectation of an output of 250 articles per week, clearly prioritizing volume over human creativity. One of my favorite recent examples is when Kara Swisher, a noted and famous reporter in the United States, put out a new book. Within 3 hours, people had taken her book, had fed it into AI, had AI write copy books or fake imitation books, used Gen AI to create images you could see on the right side of the screen that sort of look like Kara, especially if you don't follow her very closely, and started selling fake books within hours of the real book coming online. One of my other favorite examples is we're about to see the world's first permanent museum dedicated to showing AI art, a museum where all the art was not created by people, but rather by artificial intelligence. And a creepy one is we've seen the rise of what's called AI ghosts, the ability to train an AI model on your loved one's emails, diaries, memories, photos, whatever, and then to have a ghost, an AI digital ghost of your loved one that you can engage with and talk to over time. To me, that seems creepy, but perhaps we're just so early in this that we haven't built social norms around this kind of thing. But AI ghosts are becoming a thing. And then, of course, one of my favorite examples is LinkedIn is using AI to stimulate tired users by creating posts that it thinks you will engage with more deeply on LinkedIn. And don't get me wrong here, not only was the article not written by a human, was written by AI, but the topic the article would be about was selected by AI. The AI looked at your behavior on LinkedIn, it asked itself what things you might want to engage with, it created those things, and it showed them to you without a single human being in the loop. Now, these are all examples of Gen AI, and why Gen AI is so powerful, and for good reason, why so many of us are paying so much attention to what's happening in the world of generative AI. But the key point I want to make is that thinking about this decade or this era as the generative AI era is short-sighted and misses the key thing that we're living through right now, what I've coined the great commoditization of AI. And this is how I like to explain it. When we started this decade, only a very small number of the most sophisticated businesses in the world had access to artificial intelligence. We're going to finish this decade with every business on earth, including your favorite coffee shop and dry cleaners, using AI for customer service, for ordering, for accounting, for operations, and to find efficiency across their business. This is the commoditization. And what we're building right now is not just some really interesting tools with Gen AI, but it's re-architecting the entire economy and really our entire world to one where AI is ubiquitous and AI is integrated into every element of business, of social life and of personal life. That is the great commoditization. And that's the macro story that historians will tell about this decade when they look back from the future. Now, I think we can officially say that we're either past or nearly past the hype stage, and we're now into the real value creation stage of this chapter of the technology evolution. And what I put here is how I see the brief commercial history of artificial intelligence. I mentioned that AI is almost 100 years old, but a vast majority of that time, it was purely an academic exercise. And it was really in the very late 90s when companies like my dad began to monetize algorithms and early machine learning capabilities. But it really wasn't until 2008 we can kind of begin to think about AI being truly commercialized in what I call the super early adopter and hard worker era of AI. And that's when companies like UTrip were building AI. And this was incredibly difficult because we had to build everything in-house ourselves from scratch. We had to collect our own data. So again, that's why I call it the early adopter and hard worker era of AI. And then the great commoditization really came onto the scene with the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022. So I call 23 the play and ship era of AI, or the play and ship just to show people that you can do something with Gen AI era of AI. And we saw a lot of cool startups and a lot of cool use cases, but most of those did not survive. And then we moved into 2024, which is what I call the getting back to business phase. CEOs and business leaders from across the economy saw the investments they made and other companies made in AI and saw the lack of ROI, the lack of return on investment that came from those efforts and from those investments they made. And 2024 was really a year where CEOs and companies looked inwards and said, where's our opportunity to utilize AI? What are our success criteria? What are part of the businesses that we are ready to move on now? And they became ready to do real AI, to invest in real AI, which is what I call the getting back to business phase, going from the hype to business. And that's why I think of 2025 and 2026 as the era of mass adoption of AI. The startups are ready, but more importantly, the buyers, the clients are ready, the public is ready, and large enterprises have begun to create a whole ecosystem to bring in AI in-house, to adopt it, and then to check and iterate on it as it continues to mature and evolve. And in this mass adoption era of AI, it's no longer happening just because AI is novel and cool. And don't get me wrong, I think AI is really cool. But it's happening because there's real business incentives to do so. For example, nearly 80% of travelers want to use artificial intelligence in their travel and accommodation journey. That is demand from actual consumers. And as we all know, consumer demand is always what moves markets sustainably. And the big guys are preparing for the agentic era of AI. Of course, agentic era is just an era with lots of agents, AI agents out there, just a fancy term people are using. But the agentic era is coming, and the big companies in the economy are preparing for it. Amazon and AWS has formed an entire new group focused on AI agent creation for their clients. Booking.com is preparing for the agentic era and are incredibly bullish on it. And the stat that I find most interesting is somewhere between a quarter and a third of the startups currently in Y Combinator have had all of their code or nearly all of their code written by AI. Now, even if there is some marketing in there, which it probably is, even if it's directionally correct, the fact that some of our best technology companies in the economy are no longer using human coders but AI instead is a really telling data point about where we're going in the coming years with agentic AI. And for those of us who work in luxury and with high net worth individuals, it's easy for us to delude ourselves into believing that AI is just for the mass market or just for other kinds of offering. But of course, our friends at LVMH and many of the top fashion and luxury houses in the world are disagree, and they're moving quickly into the AI era, and so should we. Now, looking a bit closer to home, in 2023 and 2024, we saw an endless innovation adoption of AI across our economy. But as I shared before, many of these startups failed or had to pivot or had to merge with another startup because we found that these business models were not sustainable. And this wasn't just true for startups. This was just as true for the big AI projects started within large incumbent players. But there was lots of innovators who taught us a lot and really were pushing the envelope in a way that benefited all of us. Now, I think the biggest failed promise of AI in 2023 came from Brian, the CEO of Airbnb, someone I look up to and respect enormously, who told us in 2023 that by the end of that year, Airbnb site will be completely rebuilt around an AI concierge that help travelers figure out where to go, when to go, the right house, etc. And I'm not sure when the last time you went to Airbnb was, but it looks exactly the same as it did before this grand announcement was made 2 years ago. And it's an important reminder that even for the most sophisticated and innovative companies in our economy, This is a much harder task than it seems to really revolutionize what you're doing with AI, which is why I constantly tell CEOs and leaders, you don't have to be stressed about AI. This epoch is going to roll out over a decade, just like the mobile revolution epoch took over a decade to roll out. But what you don't have the luxury of doing is ignoring it. We all have to engage, but we have to remember that it's not about 6 months or 1 year projects, but it's about rebuilding our businesses and our economy in a way that is more efficient, more productive, and is future-proof. Now, as we enter the next chapter of AI, I wanted to share a few of the innovations in our space that I'm paying attention to, that I'm excited about. So one is using AI to extend your brand and your team. So for example, we've seen a number of companies create AI concierges that go with you on the trip. So when you leave the hotel's digital concierge can be in your pocket, giving you recommendations, answering your questions, supporting you along the way, and of course creating monetization opportunities by selling additional piece of inventory in real time on the go, creating both a financial benefit, but a customer service and a hospitality benefit as well. We've seen hotels using AI and other smart technology to optimize the operations on property and to re-architect their hotels or other physical spaces to both improve the hospitality experience and their business and the monetization efforts. They can figure out, where do people like to hang out and what do they do in these spaces? And should we re-architect them? Should we offer a bar? Should we move things around? Giving you a lot more information about the usage of your space that used to come anecdotally and now is really coming in a precise data-driven approach. We've seen customer service AI that's really improving dramatically over the last few years. Of course, AI customer service is probably the earliest commoditization, the earliest thing that was made widely available. But the thing is, as we know, most of those kind of sucked. And the reality is, even if the AI was pretty good, it didn't really know your brand, it didn't really know your business, it didn't really know how you wanted to talk to customers. So we're seeing companies like NLX and others creating much more sophisticated AI customer service solutions that really now offer your brand service and standards to your customers, as opposed to just being something generic off the shelf. And computer vision, which I always say is one of the least utilized types of AI in our industry, is a really good opportunity to create win-win-win relationships. In this example right here in the kitchen, this computer vision system can identify food that is prepped too much or made too much or not cut correctly, and thus is reducing your profitability because it's getting thrown away. So it can help you reduce what you throw away, and by doing so, both improve your environmental impact or reduce the negative impact of your kitchen while improving profitability. And if you connect it to a reservation system, it can even improve the fit between the food in the buffet and what your guests are going to want to eat when they check into the hotel, creating a win-win-win experience using AI. Better experience for your customers, better margins and profits for you, while making sure we take care of our planet. We're seeing companies create agency brains, the ability for all of the people in your company to share their knowledge with an AI that now can use that to become a central database and a central repository for all the knowledge you have from your fam trips, from your research, from your past customers, from your feedback and reviews, etc. And now that knowledge can be made available to everyone in your organization, not just increasing everyone's access to knowledge, but also making the whole process much more efficient. No more emails or waiting for someone at the coffee stand, but really the ability to get access to their knowledge in real time and to use that knowledge to elevate everyone across the organization. And the thing about AI is that AI is no longer siloed into these specific elements of your business. And this is not done yet. We have a lot more work to do on the connectivity layer and the connected trip layer. But smart companies like Mindtrip are creating AI that can seamlessly go across the traveler lifecycle and across the elements of your business to ensure that the data and the knowledge follows to offer real personalization for customers with heightened efficiency and productivity for your business. And the thing I want to add too is robots and AI employees are going to be big business, and they're going to be big business very soon. In the next 2 years, you're going to see that most hotels in the world will begin to deploy robots, especially in the back of the house, and some of them, of course, will do it in the front of the house as well, to support housekeeping, to move things around, to clean, to organize, to deliver, etc. And then the even bigger news here is that AI employees are coming. Imagine if every one of your human employees could be augmented by multiple AI assistants. What would their job look like? What would your job look like when you have multiple AI assistants? I've written a lot about what I call the Office of the CEO for everyone, but this Office of the CEO for everyone is really coming for frontline workers as well. And we all have to begin to rethink about how we optimize our business and how we train our employees for a future where they can each have assistants helping them be a lot more productive. And the best part is all of us will enjoy our jobs more. None of us have a job where we like 100% of the things we do. Well, AI can help with that. And then, of course, there's so many generic tools that both consumers and professionals in our industry are using, and we don't want to forget about those as well. And now many people tell me, and they're completely right, I often say this too, that some of these AI tools still totally suck, and that's absolutely true. But the point I always like to make is made perfectly in this chart right here. AI is improving at astonishing rates. If you look at hand recognition, it took nearly 20 years to get hand recognition to human level proficiency from the time we started training AI bots on it. But if you look at AI generated code, it took just about a year. Incredible speed improvements. And this will be true for any AI solution, any capability that your business is considering as well. So if it's not good enough today, don't give up on it. Remember that you're merely months away from seeing massive improvements in its capabilities. And the best part is for an industry, especially one like ours in travel and hospitality, is we can work together. We can partner with our suppliers, our sellers, our operators, and everyone else to collect the best knowledge, the best data, and create proprietary LLMs. Again, what DeepSeek taught us is that you can train really good LLMs for a lot less money than we thought just a few months ago. We can do this on proprietary data where the LLM returns feedback based on our own experience, our own knowledge, the way that we like to talk about travel, as opposed to the generic information available out there on the web. Now, before I conclude, I wanted to share a couple of examples and ideas for travel agencies and advisors, and in reality, they're very similar ideas that hotels and many other players within our space can utilize. One is that we should never be sending the same generic response to customers over and over again anymore. The simplest thing you can do is take the long description of a hotel, a cruise, a tour, whatever it is, and stick it into a GPT-like engine with information about that specific customer and that specific trip, and have it rewrite it in real time. And instantly, you'll be able to send personalized content and personalized information for every one of your guests at scale. Think about the ability to do top-of-funnel ideation and trip planning, continuously making recommendations for things a customer might want to add to their trip throughout the travel lifecycle, either when you're on the phone with them or if you're a DIY offering throughout the funnel as they're going down your engagement process, and of course after the initial booking. And of course you can look at many more of these examples as well, but the thing I really want to say as well is you need to build mental models around AI. You need to encourage yourself and your team to think about where the high value opportunities lie and how to apply AI. So one example I always like to use is AI is really good to be applied when the speed of a response to a customer question is more important than the human touch and creativity. For example, what's the dress code at that shrine versus where should I propose to my girlfriend? The first is a perfect response for AI because when I'm asking that, I'm probably packing my suitcase and I want the answer right now. Versus that very romantic question of where should I propose to my girlfriend is something I'm clearly willing to wait till tomorrow morning when your concierge or one of your human experts can get back to me with really creative ideas. Now, many of you are CEOs or leaders and have employees. So 3 pieces of advice that I've been sharing for a few years now that seem to work really well. First, cultivate AI literacy and enthusiasm within your organization. Second, identify high-value opportunities to create mental models like the one I just shared, and share them across the organization. Make sure people know when this happens, we like to use AI. When that happens, we like to use human intelligence, and help them build those mental models and spread them across the organization. And of course, the most important of all is cultivate a culture of innovation. Nothing beats a culture of innovation within a business. There's many lessons from the first 24 months of the great commoditization of AI. They're listed here, but for the sake of time, I'm going to skip them because, of course, I've talked about them elsewhere as well. And of course, remembering that you have to use all the tools in your toolkit. Gen AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's really just one small sub area of AI. And we really have to think about the rest. And as I said before, especially if you're in physical space, hotel, tour, cruise, etc., computer vision is something that I bet your company is undervaluated and underthought about. And of course, the most important AI lesson or AI model is, of course, the business model. As I tell CEOs all the time, don't start with AI, start as you always have. What is the business challenge or business opportunity ahead of you? How do you want to go about solving it? And then what are the best tools to accomplish those goals? The AI model is still powered by business models. A few predictions for the years ahead. Again, these are in a few of my other speeches, so I'll give you a chance to go look at those there. But I want to conclude by sharing 4 mental models that I think are really important. First, AI employee. The AI employee is coming. for frontline, for back office, for white collar employees. It's coming for the entire economy. And we all have to begin to think, how will our jobs change and how will our team members and employees' jobs change when AI employees show up? And how do we want to reorchestrate our businesses to welcome these employees to drive efficiency, productivity, without losing the important connection we have with our partners and our clients, which are managed by humans? Next is AI is both your superpower and your greatest competitor. In one of the very first public speeches I ever gave 11 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever that was now, I talked about the fact that superpowers and competitors coming from AI are both going to be there, and that it's really up to you to choose if you want AI to be your superpower or your greatest competitor. And that's the most exciting thing. The choice is up to you. Access to great technology is coming at scale. Many of our businesses in our industry have felt historically that we were underfinanced and did not have the ability to hire enough engineers to compete with other sectors or the big technology companies in our industry. Well, the good news is that's about to change drastically. Most companies will no longer be limited by their inability to hire the top engineers or enough engineers, as AI-generated code will become more and more important. And the roles you really got to think about in the future are things like system architects, technical product managers, product designers, and other folks that can work with the AI to really create the product and to connect it to a business model. But you will no longer be limited by your ability to hire engineers and coders, which is really exciting to most small and medium businesses in the economy. And last and most important of all, omnipresent AI means that the best differentiator is the human connection. In a world with robots, AI employees, and automation everywhere, the thing that we humans will seek more than ever is authentic human connections and relationships. So try to figure out how can your business double down on the human relationship, because that is a formula for success in the future. Thank you so much for engaging on this topic, because I always say, especially for those of us who are not deep in the AI world, it is much easier to not have this conversation. It is much easier to just go about your day. But I'm so grateful to you for engaging in this topic, so together we can all build a world personally, socially, and professionally that we're happy with and proud of in the future. Thank you very much.